صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير خلق كلهم مولاي صل وسلم دائما.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. You're watching The Right Path. I'm your host Rida Shah. Till death do us part is the solemn pledge couples take on their wedding day. But it's not that simple. Because when you're tying a knot with someone, you're basically bringing two worlds together and forming a unit. And oftentimes during that formation of a unit, you go through disputes, there are discords, and there are, of course, challenges that you face. But the thing is how to move ahead with those challenges, not to set unrealistic expectations of your partners, and how to deal with this institution of marriage is the question that we'll be asking Dr. Kanwal Kaisar today. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Kanwal, how are you?
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Alhamdulillah.
So, Dr. Kanwal, I think this is a very, very important topic that we're addressing, and I think it will have far-reaching impact if we do it right.
Yeah.
So, if we ask the basic question, so what is the foundation of a marriage?
The foundation of the marriage has been explained very beautifully in Surah Rum, verse number 21 in Quran, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. Says that out of his signs is he created from you among yourselves your spouses, so you may find tranquility, you find affection and mercy. So these are the three elements, the basic things that has to be there. These are like the, I would call it a triad with all the gelling, cementing factors between the marriage, that you are peaceful for each other, you bring in tranquility. Then there is mawadda. Mawadda is love, and this is not the kind of love where there is candlelight dinner and you just look into each other's eyes and you're like, I love you and I love you, and you are having those celebrations. But it's like the bonding, the level of commitment which is there with you. You understand each other, you are able to adjust to each other. Like our elders used to sometimes say, beta, in our marriage there was a lot of compromises.
Yes.
And we just look at them, roll our eyes and say, oh, I'm not going to make any compromise. I want to like have a relationship with a lot of transparency. But that is mawadda, when you adjust one another and then you care about each other. And then there is rahmah, there is a lot of mercy among the relationship. And these three elements you would find nowadays when you talk about marital discord and disputes, and in all the elements it is missing. A lot of time people, when they plan for their wedding, they are planning for which designer is going to make my dress, and what is going to be the theme, and what colors and everything, and how many events. And then we are going around buying stuff for ourselves, but we are not investing in these three elements, that how am I going to groom myself and be prepared for that wedding.
Right. And I think this is very important because we focus on the materialistic aspect of it and not on the emotional aspect of it. Because, okay, whenever a guy is looking for a girl, they mostly focus on the beauty, right? And if a girl is looking for a guy, she will basically focus on financial stability.
Yes.
These are the benchmarks that are set in the society. So if I ask you this question, that what are the qualities that one should aim for in search of their significant other? So what would you say, both advice for men and women?
We get this advice with a lot of clarity from Quran and Sunnah. Like in a hadith, in a narration by the Prophet ﷺ, it is said that when we are looking for a female as a spouse, so there are four factors that are taken into account, like the beauty, the family, the status, and the finances. So the Prophet ﷺ said that the priority should be given to the religion. So the religion is also fourth one. The priority has to be given to the religion. So if you get a religious wife and she's also beautiful, or she has a status, or she has finances, so there's nothing wrong with that, because sometimes people look at you and like, oh, you were supposed to be a religious figure, and how come you are aiming for a beautiful wife or a wife with a lot of financial stability? There is nothing wrong with that, but the priority has to be the religion in case of female. Why? Because she is the nucleus of the family. So everything is going to be revolving around her. So if she sets the right benchmarks and standards within the family parameters, it is going to be very effective for them. Then what has been told to the guardian of a female, that when you are giving your daughter or your sister in marriage to a guy, look for two important factors. One is religion, and second is akhlaq, that is mannerism.
Right.
And that is also very, very important, because if there is no religion, let's say he doesn't pray, he's not submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how would he submit to anything that a wife is asking?
Yeah,
He's
the
not going
commandments
to.
of God in
Yes.
terms of rights of your
Exactly,
wife.
wives as well. So that is important, that he should have, and a lot of the scholars, in fact the scholars say that none of the believing men should give their daughters and their sisters in the marriage to a guy who doesn't pray at all. Because if he doesn't have this kind of submission, he is going to bring in a package of problems
Right.
for that girl. But akhlaq is also very important, because sometimes they just look at, oh, this so and so looks very religious, he's hafiz Quran, he has learned Quran, or he's engaged in some of the Islamic activities, but you don't focus on his mannerism, his behavior.
Yeah.
So Islam lays a lot of stress. Why? Because the female will have to deal with a nasty narcissistic personality at the end of the day if she is not concerned about the manners of a person. Or a lot of domestic abuse cases would come to you because of the similar factors, because this guy is not at all tolerant and doesn't give me any space. So the relationship building factors are very important from both aspects.
That is indeed true, and mannerism and religion is the foremost quality that women should look
Yes.
for in a man. And if we talk about, because right now we're talking about the journey, we'll come to the marriage itself a little later, because I think this is the initial stage. So in today's world, you know, when we've talked about this as well, that men and women, they're working in closed spaces, and you know, there's bound to be natural attraction. We cannot deny that. It's all real. So I think Islam gives us women and men the choice to choose their partners, right?
Yes, it
But
does.
how to approach that in a way that is appropriate to the religion?
Islam does give right to women as well as men to make their choices. But the point that we have to understand is that Islam starts our teaching us about our responsible behaviors from very young age. So if you have learned a responsible behavior, and if you have the right vision in your life, it will be very easy for you to make that choice. But let's say if you have always been casual person, not focused in all areas of your life, that can become a big challenge for you. So yes, we can make a choice, but that choice again has to be according to that the limits that have been set for us, and that is also for our own betterment. Basically, let's say if the men and women, they are working together or studying together, or somehow they got in contact with each other and they like each other, then they should immediately involve their families in the whole process.
Right.
Why? Because a lot of time girls say, oh, he wants to get to know me. He says, let's chat and let's meet for a few times and get to know each other, and then we'll talk to our families if we click. Now, the point is, this guy could be spending so many weeks and months with you, and then ultimately telling you you're not clicking, and there's another one he's opting for, and you will be just heartbroken. So if you want to understand the nature of seriousness that this guy or even the girl is depicting, then when you involve the families, then the families, they look at a larger picture as well.
Right.
Because a lot of time what we're doing is we are so caught up in our emotions, that romanticism, and because of that you're only looking at this pixel, that this one person in front of you. But ultimately when you're married, it's between two families, and your parents and your guardians, they understand you more than you understand yourself. They understand your eating habits, your the way you spend your money, how you handle difficult situations, because when we're meeting some people for this purpose, we are at our best manners.
Exactly.
Apparently it's like the face value we put up in front of that person. But our family, when we involve them, they would understand and they will have a deeper insight into what kind of person we are and if that other person is suitable for us. So first thing is you engage the families. Secondly, if you want to meet once or twice, you meet with some mahram, with some of your family members. This is for the girl,
Right.
that she should not be just hanging out with this guy all the time alone and carrying on that activity for a longer period of time. And third thing is that if the guardian of the girl, because in Islamic marriage, the guardian has a lot of role to play.
Right.
And that guardian is there at the backing of that girl. Yes, the girl can take her decision, but the guardian can advise, and the warning has been given to both parties. Like the girl has been told, don't take independent decision without involving your guardian. and at the same time the guardian has also been told that, listen, if your sister or your daughter, she really likes someone and there is not any valid reason has to be coming from Quran and Sunnah.
Okay.
It's not like I apparently don't like this guy,
Yeah.
or he did not say salam to me once or twice, or
Yeah.
he looks little rude or something like that. Any valid reason which is proven from Quran and Sunnah, or someone has reported to you about the behavior of this guy and you are skeptic about him. So that is the only reason. Otherwise, don't be egoistic. Let that girl within your family marry the guy whom she likes. Let her be having responsibility in that matter.
Right.
So there are a lot of checks and balances in the Islamic way when you choose a spouse and get married. And all those checks and balances add on to the beauty of that relationship, because they help you make the right decisions. Because when you say, oh, I am independent and I want to take independent decision, a lot of time we regret those decisions later on.
Yes. And while making the choice, I think the concept of istikhara is also very
Yes,
important.
very
So if you
important.
can shed a little bit light on
Yes.
that as well.
We are advised to have two types of consultation. One consultation is when we talk around to people. A lot of time what I've seen is people don't go around asking, like sort of taking validation from other people about the character of a girl or a boy. It is important, and sometimes they don't do it because if that particular family finds out, they really take it as an offense.
Yeah.
I think there is nothing wrong with that. You should always engage people and talk to them. And another important challenge is people, they never give honest opinion over there. They will always say, oh, it is a good match, and later on they
Yeah.
say, oh, I had this feeling, but I did not know how to convey it to you. So this is a responsibility on people as well, that we should give them an honest feedback. It could be my personal experience with someone, or it could be something that I know about the person. Once you have consulted all the people, in the same process you do istikhara. This is like having consultation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what we do in that regard is, there is a very particular dua. You can find it in all the books where there are duas or supplications, or you can even Google for that. So dua of istikhara. What you do in that is that, let's say any night time after your Isha prayer, you have 2 nafal salah, and after that you make this dua and you think about this one particular matter. You're not making a choice over there. You're not saying, can I marry him, or her or her. You don't do that, A, B, C, D. It's not like that. What you do is, you have this one particular person in your mind, and you're like asking, making dua. And if you read the translation of that dua, it means, if this is good for me, Allah make it happen. If it is not good for me, then just block it out. Then I don't want to be in any issue, because Allah knows better. So once you have done that, you make this dua. Sometimes you can have a dream, but it is sometimes very difficult to interpret a dream. What you do ultimately is, you focus on how it is progressing. If it is bringing in good feeling, there are not many
gut
hurdles. Yes. How comfortable you are getting with the whole situation. So if it happens, alhamdulillah. Again, I have come across some people who say, oh, we did istikhara and we had this marriage, and within 2 years it ended up in a divorce. So what was the use of doing istikhara? And we are confused. Did we misinterpret the istikhara? Yes, there is a possibility for that. But the point is, in that given time, that istikhara said, out of maybe other many situations, this particular this rishta or this marriage thing was better for you. So that is why you need to opt for that. Maybe if you had married someone else, or you have not opted for that, there would have been a bigger challenge in your life. So we don't know. We don't know in retrospect what was good for us or what was not. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that in that particular moment, it is the best decision for us.
Right, and we should trust that. And
Yes.
even if it does not prove to be like the example that you quoted, that if it does not happen at the right point, or does not end well, then there must be something in it for you that you will take from the relationship that will help you become a better person, better
Yes.
Muslim, or better individual.
Indeed.
Now, if we talk about, okay, so the istikhara is done, the families are coming together, and the marriage happens, right? So when two worlds, like these are two individuals, they come together, there are bound to be some disputes, and you know, their life is transformed altogether, because then there are added responsibilities, and then you have to look after the needs and wants of the other person as well.
Yes.
Initially it was just about you, now it's about the other person and the entire family as well, because in Pakistan, I think the couples, they get married, but the families
get
they
married.
get married as
Yes.
well. So what are the tips that you would like to give to the young couples that are recently getting together in the bond of marriage?
A very important thing that we have been told, that is in Surah Al-Baqarah verse number 187, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Hunna libasul lakum wa antum libasul lahun. That they are garments for you and you are garments for them. It's like treating each other as we treat our dress up.
Right.
Like it is for our beautification, it is for our protection, it is for hiding our errors, our faults, and it is our identity as well, and it gives us a pleasant appeal. So there is a long list of things that we can learn if we compare it to the dressing up. Another important thing I think in these times is, it was always there, but in these times infidelity is on a rise. Like people get married, then they get bored with the same person, and then they are chatting and they are intermingling with others, and online scenarios is very chaotic. So one thing I would say from this verse, the part of this verse is, when we say you're garment to each other, have radical honesty in your relationship.
Right.
There has to be emotional honesty where you in a decent manner can express yourself rather than keeping it to yourself. Then there has to be honesty related to any event in your past which could have an impact on your relationship in that moment. There has to be honesty about the current times, whatever you are engaged in. The couples have to know, like I could be sitting here and you ask me what is your spouse doing at the moment. So with a lot of probability I can say, oh, at this time he is doing this.
Right, because you know.
Because we know and we have been talking to we
Communicate,
communicate to each other in a proper manner. Then educating yourself on marriage needs, because a lot of time couples, when they get married, and they again get into this day and night issues and the family engagements and a lot of complications. So their romance is like sort of goes down from number 1 to number 10.
Yeah.
And
it's not a priority
it's
anymore.
not a priority anymore. And then you start missing that element in your marriage. You don't feel good about it, or you don't feel good about the, like, you know, the other person over there. Then you have kids. And if you don't have kids, again, you are sitting very aloof. That's when we need to understand different stages of marriage. Like the first stage of marriage, what the expert says, we call it honeymoon phase.
Yeah.
And that's like the first initial 6 months at the most. Nowadays, the experts say it has shrunken down to like 3 months or 4 months.
Wow.
So this is like, it's like the wow of the marriage, when you're like, oh, I am on the 7th heaven and everything is going so good in my life, and how could I even have imagined living without you? And very soon you enter this disillusionment stage, where the same wow thing, they start pinching each other.
Yeah.
And I have come across many young girls who say, oh, I wear the same dress for him, I cook the same lasagna for him, but he's not happy.
Yeah.
And I don't know what to do. Or the guy would say, I bring in the same flowers for her, but she is so upset, and she doesn't even give me any valid reason for that. This is when you are trying to adjust to the whole person in a holistic manner, because initially you went for just the mannerism that person presented, but now you know their bedroom habits, their washroom habits, and then again, you know, their day-to-day routine things that they are engaged in. The third stage is where you have power struggle, and this disillusionment can go on for like a year or so. Now, the power struggle phase can go on the whole life, when people could be, we call it meat of the marriage, where the language is you, it's all your fault, you put a blame on each other. You are so caught up in your day-to-day challenges with this susral and in-laws and Mecca and your own family members and your kids and a lot of and finances. And then ultimately what happens is you need to move on to stability stage. That can happen anytime between this stage when there is power struggle. The moment you tell yourself, wait a minute, I need to invest in this marriage. And if you want to invest in this marriage, you say, let me read some books, let me consult some experts. It could be some experts within your family as well. Or you go to proper professionals who teach you all those skills. You take refresher courses. And ultimately, you reach that stage where there is contentment in your life.
Right.
And that somehow, what I've seen is a lot of couples, when they look at their parents, they are probably in that contentment stage. And the young girls, when they get married, they sometimes keep making that comparison. Look how much my father takes care of my mother. And look, probably you are in a disillusionment stage, or you are in a power struggle phase. So you need to learn the skills. A lot of skills have to be learned, otherwise it is very difficult to sustain a good, happy marriage.
Right. So basically, first phase is honeymoon phase,
Yeah.
then disillusionment, then power struggle, and then contentment.
Yes.
So it's important to realize that if you're getting into marriage, you won't reach contentment just in a snap of a finger.
No,
It's
no.
a whole process
Yes.
that you have to go through,
Yeah.
and there will be ups and downs, and there will be some circumstances where you'll disagree with someone. But I think the key to that is having good communication.
It is.
Like you've said that
It is.
even in the case of infidelity, I think we'll come to that a little later. I have some other questions before that.
Sure.
So how to strengthen, like what are the tips that will be given by Quran and Sunnah in order to strengthen the bond between a husband and a wife?
The first thing that we find out is like in Surah Nisa, verse number 19, the part of it says, وَعَاشِرُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, that live with them with kindness. Like tolerating each other, giving each other space and respect and care. That is very, very important. And understanding other person's perspective. Very amazingly, what we find out is that there were very light moments, very romantic, intensive moments in a very nicer manner in the life of the Prophet ﷺ, because when we look at his life, it was very turbulent for him. He was always having a lot of opposition. Then he had such a high profile job at hand, so much responsibility, conveying people about the religion values and helping them practice. And at the very same time, how he was at home towards his wives, it was amazing. And that is why we find out from one narration that Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, the best of you are those who are best to their wives.
Yes,
And then
that is very important.
Yes, and in another narration he said, the best of you are those who are best toward their families, and I'm the best of you towards my family. So he took upon himself that he has to be there for his wives. Because what I've noticed is once you develop a good bonding with your wife, that's when your children are also understanding their stability, and they are also very smooth in their activities, and even the rest of the relatives, everything seems to fall in the right perspective and place with that.
Of course, because the environment is very conducive for your children, for your family.
Like we find out in one of the narration that when the Prophet ﷺ would eat, he would eat with his wife Aisha radhiyallahu anha, and they would eat in the same pot.
Right.
And when she would drink water and she would hand over that glass to the Prophet ﷺ, he would turn it and drink from the same spot, and they will just smile and look at each other. Now in our cultures, when people get married, after marriage you're not even allowed to sit together, and people say, "Oof, Allah, look at them, they are so,"
they have
in
no
our language, they have no
manners.
manner, they're so besharam, they don't have
Yeah.
modesty, they don't have haya.
Yeah.
How come they are sticking together? And now you're married, you must like
this
live
is
normal.
halal.
Yes, this is halal relationship, and we don't know how to practice that. And then we find out once the Prophet ﷺ said to Aisha radhiyallahu anha, I know when you're upset with me, and I know when you're happy with me. And she said, how do you know that? And he said that when you're upset with me, you take an oath by the God of Ibrahim. And when you are happy with me, you take oath by saying my name, the God of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So she just smiled. Then another story we find out, which I find really amazing, is that once Aisha radhiyallahu anha, she asked him, how much do you love me? And he said, like this knot on the rope, that's how tight my love is for you.
Wow.
So very frequently, all she would say is come to him and say, oh, how's the knot? And he would say, real tight.
Right.
And they would just laugh and they would just smile. So this is something that we have to do, because a lot of time what I've seen is couples, they complain about each other's insensitivity or lack of that affection towards each other. And when you talk to the other spouse, they would say, oh, I'm so busy providing for her, or the wife would say, I'm so busy taking care of the family, I don't have time for romance.
Yeah.
So these are like small chunks that we have to pull out. Just saying one small word, one sentence, one small gesture, that is going to bring in that warmth in that relationship.
I think this is very important. When you enter into a marriage, you think about all the other things except for the marriage itself.
Yes.
Because, there are two people who are living together and they're doing everything together. this is very important to spark up the romance and to
Yeah.
keep the light alive. And I think it is very common if we look around ourselves, the couples, they're just so disgruntled with each other, they just can't stand each other.
I
And
think,
they're
Rida, one of the things that is adding on to that is all the jokes that we find related to husband-wife relationship.
Right.
And I am strictly against sharing those jokes, talking about those jokes. Oh, there's a joke about husband and wife and ha ha ha.
how
And
much they hate each other,
yes,
haha.
and
This is so
husbands
funny.
are sharing with the men are sharing among men, and the women are sharing with women. It shouldn't be like that. We need to respect this relationship, and we need to help or provide or be there as a society, as a strong support for this relationship.
Okay, that is very important. And I think one of the examples that you mentioned from the life of the Prophet, peace be upon him, was that he was so attentive to
Yes.
his wives. And it is very important because I think it is a woman needs the attention and she needs the care and the affection, and it is very important to instill that in the other person. And now if we talk about the concept of polygamy, because I think this is something that is mentioned in the Quran and it is a little controversial, it gets a little controversial. So I would like to take your opinion on that for women, how to perceive it.
Once I read this story and I was really moved by that. There was a lady who had written, it's a true story, that she mentioned that my husband one day came home and he said that he wants to have another wife, and I was really upset and I resisted it. And so ultimately my husband backed off and did not have another wife. And she said that I had always been opposing the concept. After a few years, she lost her husband. Her husband died, and now she had a lot of things to manage on her own. It was finances as well as taking care of the children, and like a lot of big load that she had. And ultimately she said, another man, he approached me and he was married before, and he said that I would like to provide you the support. And she said that was the time when my husband's words echoed in my head, where he also said to me that, listen, I'm not marrying another one just for my desires or anything like that, just that I want to provide support to a needy woman. And then she realized that if she had been okay with that, another person had been able to have that support. Yes, it is difficult for us women to understand this concept or digest this concept, because a lot of time, like I'm speaking in favor of polygamy because it is there in Quran, and we cannot deny the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed men to have 4 wives. So immediately a person sitting next to me would say, oh, would you allow your husband to have 4 wives, another 3 wives?
That is the first
So
question.
that's not it. What we need to understand is that it is there not as a priority, but it is there as an option. Because when we look at the Western cultures, what happened? People eat out, people hang out, people have relationships, but they even have kids born out of wedlock.
Yeah.
And there is no responsibility on the male. All the responsibilities for the females, and sometimes they're abandoned kids as well. And look at all the chaos that is there for the whole society. So Islam basically provides rulings, so there is protection for women. There is a sense of responsibility coming from men that, listen, don't run affairs with the females. Don't mess around like that, like jumping from one relationship to another relationship and just enjoying them and leaving them on their own. If you want, if you're really interested, it could be your own need, or it could be something that you need to provide for them, whatever the reason is. If you're serious about a person, marry her.
them.
So that when you marry them, you have to be there as a responsible person for them.
Yeah.
Yes, it is difficult for the female, and in our society we see very ugly examples. I was reading again another book where it says that there are cultures where it's very normal for men to have 2 or 3 wives. So the polygamy is practiced over there. So women, they have accepted it, not like they're suffering and they have accepted it. They've accepted it and they have learned the skills how to cope with each other, and at the same time how to work on their relationship with men. So it's taken as norm in those societies. And a lot of time you see the balance between how the men are treating their women to a certain extent.
Yes, that is very important.
That is the most important thing. In our cultures, why we are so wary of this whole process is because we have seen ugly examples. We see this man who is in himself in the age of 60 and he's marrying sweet 16.
Yeah.
And just the girls out of their beauty. Then they are not providing for their kids from the first wife or the second wife. So these are the challenges that needs to be addressed. These are the challenges in which men, they need to be educated. And again, we need to understand that this is something which has been allowed as an option, so that there is less responsibility on female and more responsibility on men.
That is very important. And lastly, I would like to ask you a quick question. What are the rights of wife in light of Islam and the husbands in light of Islam? Because I think it is very important to identify this, because people have messed up concept about it. And like you've always mentioned, that Quran is the ultimate source of guidance. You should go back to that, not what you like or what the other people are saying, oh, this is the right thing to do and this is not the right thing to do. So in light of that, a quick response.
A quick response would be the men have been made qawwam. That is, qawwam means have been given an upper edge, like a CEO in the family.
Right.
Why? Because he's spending on the female. So the most important thing the men have to do is spend on the family and take care of their needs and provide for the education of the wife and the kids and the grooming of the family. That is the main responsibility that comes from the male. For the female, because the CEO is like taking care of all your needs, so what you have to do is be faithful to him, take care of the needs, and work in the system as your husband likes you to. Like, adjust yourself to that system because the CEO is commanding that. But at the very same time, show a lot of affection. So for men, it is they take care of their responsibilities and they show affection towards female. For female, they take their home as the main grounding. But yes, if they're working outside home and their husband allowed them, they mature themselves, they grow themselves, and at the same time take the family as their main priority, even if they are working outside. So that is something that they have to work on.
That is very good advice. Thank you so much, Dr. Kanwal Kaisar. Again, a very enlightening conversation with you about the concept of marriage and how to approach it from the very start. Do your istikhara, do your background checks as well when it comes to choosing a partner. And when you enter the sacred relationship of marriage, then you have to own up to your goals. You have to own up to your roles as well, as a husband and a wife and a unit as well. On this note, I'll bid you farewell. Take care. Allah Hafiz.
بك خير خلق كلهم مولاي صل وسلم دائما